The International Newsnet World Report is a national television news show available in more than 30 million homes. We broadcast daily real news the networks won't tell you. We are solely viewer-supported. That means you. You can donate at our website, INNWorldReport.net. We hope you find the following interview informative and helpful.
The new book, The Late Great USA, has made the New York Times bestseller list. Its author, Jerome Corsi, has just released another article on WorldNet Daily entitled The Declaration of North American Integration Unearthed. He now joins us by phone from an undisclosed but well air-conditioned location. Welcome to INN, Jerry.
Lenny, great pleasure to be with you. Thank you.
Jerry, you make the point that this represents a long-term effort by local governments to bypass state and federal governments and work directly with Mexico and Canada. How is this local, except for that now the locals want to be on the same gravy train that the federal government and their friends have created?
Well, it's very interesting. I mean, what you've got here is an Oklahoma City mayor, Mick Cornett, and one of the watchdog groups in Oklahoma, Oklahoma Corridor Watch, unearthed this Declaration of North American Integration that Cornett signed in May 2004. He was attending a meeting of the North American International Trade Corridor Partnership in Kansas City, and that group is now part of NASCO, the North American Super Corridor Coalition. And they're promoting Interstate 35, which comes up through Oklahoma, to be a North American super corridor, what I call a NAFTA superhighway. And it's at issue here in Oklahoma is that there's a move on by the investment bankers and some of the politicians that probably look to gain from this Trans-Texas corridor, 4-football field highway that's being built in Texas right up to the border with Oklahoma. Now that that's settled, and Governor Perry's vetoed the last objections, the Trans-Texas Corridor is going to start to be built. Now the pressure's on Oklahoma to build one of these extensions of the Trans-Texas Corridor parallel to Interstate 35, tearing up 4 football fields wide of Oklahoma. And that the mayor signed this declaration is being seen in Oklahoma as local governments. Here the mayor of Oklahoma City making arrangements to position Oklahoma to participate in this highway's expansion north, and then, circumventing state officials who don't know much about it. It's certainly circumventing federal officials because most of the Congress and senators, in Washington profess to know very little about the Trans-Texas Corridor or the Security and Prosperity Partnership in North America.
Jerry, this is quite surprising to most of us. This is a trade agreement that was signed between the three countries, never voted on by Congress. When the legislature of Texas gets a hold of it, the governor vetoes it. It's Rick Perry. He's a Republican. He's obviously in the pocket of George Bush. Is there any legislation left that can possibly prevent this, or at least bring it into public scrutiny where it can be debated?
Well, the Security and Prosperity Partnership in North America was not even a law or a treaty of any kind. It was simply a declaration, a press release. The three leaders, George Bush, together with President of Mexico, then Vicente Fox, and the Prime Minister of Canada, then Paul Martin, is Waco, Texas, March 23, 2005. They have a summit meeting over at Baylor University, and they come out on a stage together, and three leaders behind them have got this mosaic of the maps of the flags of the three countries blended together, and a map of North America, and they declare that we're in the Security and Prosperity Partnership in North America. It's just a declaration. Now, what's happening is that as people across the country are becoming aware that this is probably an agreement to open the borders between the three countries, and I argue in the new book it's moving us towards a North American Union, the same way that Europe was taken down a 50-year track from a economic agreement to end up European Common Market, and now the European Union, together with the new currency, the euro. Well, our elitists have named our new currency the Amero, A-M-E-R-O, for the North American Union. The elitists are far along down this track. But, it takes us discovering these declarations of North American integration that Oklahoma City Mayor Mick Cornett signed in 2004, and it's been pigeonholed away. Nobody recognized it or realized it. We find it, it becomes a major news story because it shows, again, the involvement of city officials in, constructing these superhighways north from Texas now into Oklahoma.
Well, Jerry, you mentioned that Mick Cornett, in your article, you mentioned he also spoke at, I believe it was a mayor's conference in Boston a while ago. He's an advocate for the equivalent of the European Union, the North American Union, as we've come to call it. There are a lot of people, a lot of industrialists out there that feel this is the best way for the free market to keep going. But what is the main objection from people like yourself to the plan?
Well, the issue here for the globalists is that essentially a North American Union, if it was formed, or integration with Mexico and Canada, forming a common market like Europe has, is really only going to benefit the multinational corporations. Because the idea is then to plug that entity into the world trade structure for the globalists. And what's happening is we're losing millions of jobs to China. The middle class is being hurt. I mean, people are waking up when they're saying, we're over 6 years into the Bush administration, we're supposed to have a war on terror going on, and yet our borders with Mexico and Canada are wide open. The government itself admits we have 12 million illegal aliens. That means we probably have 20 or 30 million. 75% of them have come across the border while George Bush has been president. And when you translate that, that's 1 out of every 10 people born today in Mexico are living in the United States as Mexican citizens. By 2010, 2015, that's going to be 1 out of every 5 people born in Mexico living in the United States as a Mexican citizen, with some 40 Mexican consular offices protecting the civil rights of these Mexican nationals living in the United States. We've already become a dual country. And now with the businesses reconfiguring even our transportation structure so we can, more cheaply transport these huge numbers of containers from China, well, the only advantage that our multinational corporations have with all this is they want cheap labor. And it was never predicated in international trade classical theory that the competitive advantage a country like China would have that would justify its position in world trade will be that it subsidizes its currency, it uses slaves or near slaves as employees, and it allows its corporations to ruin the environment. I mean, classical free trade would have said that's not fair and would have demanded anti-slavery provisions to be put into the treaty.
You do make a separation between this form of free trade and pre-neocon free trade.
Yeah, I mean, this kind of free trade that's going on right now would never have passed the classical economic theory. And classical economic theorists of international trade would say exactly what's happening. If you allow your trade agreements to be totally one-sided, you say that China can use slaves, but it's immoral to use African-American slaves in the United States. And, quite frankly, it should be immoral to use slaves of any kind anywhere in the world. We ought to be disgraced that we're doing it. But our multinational corporations don't care.